It's a 60-minute drive for a 60-minute game. After all the miles we've traveled, we're almost there. After all the hours we've worked, one more can make us legends. After all that time, this is our time.
Well, that gets you fired up right there. We're just a few days away. Welcome into the First and Long College Football Show. I am your co-host, Marcus. Mason, how you doing today, buddy?
Man, I'm doing great, Mark. Out here on the road today, but doing what I love best and ready to talk some college football with you.
Looks like you're laying on the football field there.
Man,
that's really cool.
Just giving out grass angels here.
Yeah, you're doing your best Les Miles, testing out the grass, give it a little taste.
That's right.
See what it's all about.
It's a shot a day, you know.
Yeah, you don't play football on a field without tasting the grass first. I'm sure it's Bermuda.
Yeah.
And that's always the best tasting stuff. We got a good show for you today, folks. We're going over some camp buzz. We're going over some injury updates. We're just a few days away, so we're giving you vital information that you're going to need for your betting purposes, your all your favorite teams' first games coming up, and this is going to be an exciting beginning of the year, and I'm excited to talk some actual football. We have no realignment talk today, so amen to that, brother. But we're going to go through some of these teams. We got some info on BAMA. We got some info on Texas, USC, UGA. And like I said, we've got some injury updates. But first, I wanted to go over a couple little recruiting nuggets that have popped up over the last week or so. So we have got we've got a situation out in Missouri. I'm sure you've read about it, Mason. I think we talked about it on the phone earlier today. But Missouri has changed state laws to allow their high school players, if they're going to be playing their college ball in the state of Missouri, it allows them to make money off of their name, image, and likeness as a high schooler. And immediately, 2 days after the law is signed in, they pick up a 5-star defensive lineman. Have you heard about this? It's a Williams Nwaneri.
Waniri, I think is how you
Yeah, there you
pronounce it. But
go.
he's he's a stud, man. They picked him up. He's fully expecting to be making money right away. And they've also got a 5-star wide receiver, Ryan Wingo, that they're looking at, the number 7 overall player in the country, who is also out of the state of Missouri, out of that St. Louis area. And this is the new age. This is very amazing if you're a Missouri fan, right? If you're in the state of Missouri, certainly if you're a high school football athlete that's looking to profit off of your name, image, and likeness. But I wonder. I mean, obviously, let's just start with this. I mean, this is obviously a dream come true for Drinkwitz. I'm sure that there's been some lobbying to get this passed, but ultimately, this is what you want if you're a sort of bottom feeder SEC program that's having issues with recruiting and people are poaching your state. And specifically that St. Louis area, which is just a hotbed for recruiting. Why not make it a little bit tougher for them to come in, and why not give yourself an edge and allow for you in high school if you commit to an in-state program, and that's the law is if you commit to an in-state program, you're able to profit off of your name, image, and likeness in high school. So this is prior to signing an NLI. So this is really uncharted territory. This is a very nuanced idea and practice. So far so good for the alpha nerd over there in Columbia. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think it changes things, obviously, like you said, for the state of Missouri in general and the Mizzou football team. Um, this is a team that they've already got a really good defense, man. They were a top 20 defense last year. People don't realize that because it was kind of glossed over by a not so good offense. But this helps their cause a lot. It keeps people from coming in from out of state. I mean, this was a guy that Oklahoma was after and thought they had. Georgia was after him. I mean, this guy had opportunities to go play for coaches who have put lots of NFL guys, lots of defensive guys in the NFL. So obviously it changes things. It just blows my mind. I know, I mean, eventually I'm going to get used to it and I'm going to be numb to it, but it blows my mind to think about an 18 or 19-year-old getting done with high school and then, April rolls around and it's time to file a tax return and pay taxes on an NIL situation. And the Lord knows he's cutting, 40% of that to the government. So I guess it kind of helps out the state of Missouri as well in that aspect. But I think it's, good for them. They're doing whatever gives them an edge. And that's what it's going to take to have an elite squad. You've got to have everybody on the same page and everybody working together. Now, with all that being said, they're still ranked. If you add in Texas and Oklahoma into the 2024 classes, of the SEC, they're still ranked 16th in the SEC in recruiting. So, I mean, yeah, they're doing pretty good. They're, I think, they're about top 30 in the nation in recruiting, but that gets you last place in the SEC, and that's just how tough it's going to be. I mean, the bottom 8 teams just slid down a couple of rungs by adding in Oklahoma and Texas because, I mean, they're going to recruit. I mean, both of those teams are going to recruit. Even with Oklahoma going 6-7 last year, it makes no difference. They're recruiting very well, finished top 10 last year, and they're going to continue to do that. So, good for them. I hope that it helps Missouri out, and I hope that they can be better down the road from it. I really do, because I like to watch the smaller teams be able to excel like that. And hey, give your team every advantage you can, man. I'm all for it.
Well,
Absolutely.
and the only thing is, I don't think it's going to last, because how long before every state has similar legislation?
Texas is working on it right now.
Georgia's working on it right now too, because of a 2026 quarterback by the name of Juju Lewis, who just basically, I forget how the article worded it, but essentially he alone is the reason why ESPN decided to show him to show. I guess he's the reason why ESPN came to show his program, on a Friday night during prime time, and no other high school in the country was being shown at that time, and so there are big time programs that are TV programs that are profiting off of these high school players and their name, image, and likeness. So, there's like legitimate reason for it. But how long is it going to be before it's nationwide or not state to state, but because I can tell you, if the state of Georgia does that, then UGA is not missing on all these Buford guys that they have. And, yeah. And, things just get a little bit scarier if you're an opposing fan for the Georgia Bulldogs, and really you can say the same about Florida, Texas, Louisiana, California, all of these states. California not so much, Texas probably not so much, because there's so much competition in the state. But all of these hotbed states for recruiting are going to have an advantage.
Well, and eventually they're all just going to have the same laws.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And it's just keeping up with the Joneses type thing, and it's going to be just normal, and nobody's going to have an advantage. So I guess for Missouri's sake, I tip my hat and say, good for them for being on the cutting edge of this stuff, and being on the front line of it. And if they snag 3 or 4 or 5 stars over the next couple years because they have an advantage, then it was totally worth it. I mean, it was
Yeah.
totally worth it to them. They have literally nothing to lose, and the school doesn't lose any money. They're not paying these players, so I feel like it's a win-win. And if you've got enough money to pay a 18-year-old kid for playing high school ball, then you're not worried about the money anyway, I guess, right? I mean, I wouldn't know. I don't
Yeah.
have money like that, so I would not understand that logic at all. I'm looking for returns on anything I spend. So that is what it is. And another, this is breaking news. Kamarion Franklin is a 5-star defensive lineman, and he committed to Ole Miss.
Wow.
This is something that happened today. And this is a 6'5". He's 265 pounds. I would say that for a middle of the defensive line guy, he's probably a little light. Obviously, he's still in high school. He's a recruit. But they're saying that this is maybe a guy that could do a couple different things as far as maybe getting out on the edge,
Yeah.
and being able to work from there, or put on weight and kind of go from there. Sorry about that. Some ads, but trying to get his highlight video up there. But this is a big get. I mean, I forgive me, but I can't really remember the last time Ole Miss was getting 5-star defensive linemen. Can you? I mean, maybe when they were paying them when they weren't supposed to, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And even then it was there were a lot of offensive linemen, Laramie Tunsil comes to mind, but
Right.
I can't think of the last 5-star defensive lineman to go to Ole Miss. Yeah.
Yeah, the Tuies, I mean, they haven't paid for their defensive linemen to come there or nothing like that. So, yeah, you know what? We gotta now that we just said that, we gotta say something about it. That was just like crazy, right?
Yeah.
So you kept up with the story. Anybody who hadn't kept up with it, it's from the movie The Blind Side, and it's Michael Orr. The movie's basically just a crock of crap. Basically, is what I gathered from it. It's really sad, honestly. Like I I don't. The Tuohys were on some radio station the other day. One of the Tuohys was, and I just can't believe. Well, I say I can't believe it. Hollywood lies about stuff all the time to make a good movie or whatever. So I get that, but somebody, I mean, they signed a conservatorship, got him to sign it and everything, and he thought it was adoption papers, and they made, I mean, like $10 or $12 million off the movie. The kids and stuff were making money off of it, and I guess Michael was making so much money that he was just like didn't realize what was going on, maybe, or thought Hollywood was the one making the money, but now it's on. It's going to court, and it's going to be on like Donkey Kong. And you know what? Michael Orr needs to go get his money because that's a bunch of horse crap, in my opinion. And the Tuohys walked across that field, and they enjoyed all the luxuries of having a child play Division I football when they didn't have a child that played Division I football, and they were doing it for all the wrong reasons. Um, and that was just it's a developing story, and it's going to go on for a while, obviously, because anything that goes through litigation and things like that is going to take some time. But I just thought that was an interesting story this year, and or this past week, and I think it's going to be an interesting year for that story.
Yeah, one thing real quick on that. I mean, I'm not mad about Hollywood embellishing the story. I'm not. Some people are saying like Sandra Bullock should give up her Oscar and stuff like that. It's like, what? She had nothing to do with this,
It was entertaining. It was an entertaining movie. You all watched it. That's why it made $400 million at the box office. I mean, so she didn't do it. The Tuohys did it. So
right.
we gotta take away the Tuohys, rebel card or whatever they got going on over there at the stadium where they're over there calling shots and stuff. But just unbelievable.
But pay Michael Orr, and I don't have an issue with it. Like,
yeah, just pay him, cut him in.
It's a Hollywood story, but like the fact that he doesn't get paid makes it like super gross.
Let the man get his beak wet just a little. I mean, come on now. I mean, for the love of God, and it's weird. So we've had these stories coming out lately. Have you watched the Johnny Manziel thing yet?
Oh yeah,
on Netflix. Okay, obviously, dude was just like a walking recruiting violation, right?
Mhm.
And then all this Michael Orr stuff comes out, and the NCAA investigated both of these guys while they were in school and cleared them. And then they go to the NFL, and years later, we figure out it's just like, oh yeah, basically I had an autograph ring going, made hundreds of thousands and blah blah blah. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. It kind of goes to show you now that the cat's out of the bag with the NIL thing. It's just kind of now everybody. It's like it's almost just been like whitewashed all the bad stuff that's been done. And what's the NCAA going to do? Take a win away from you or something? I mean, the worst they can do is take away, a trophy or something if you're like your USC and that Reggie Bush situation. So just interesting times in college football, and we all know that it's turbulent times to say the least. So let's get into some camp buzz, man. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, so let's we're going to start off with USC, and we're going to work our way to Bama. We're going to go in reverse ABC order. Just kidding, because I can't even figure out what's reverse ABC.
I was about to say I got to rearrange all my notes.
No, I couldn't even figure out. I couldn't even say my ABCs backwards, so that's impossible for me. But I do want to start at USC, and I don't have like a ton of notes on USC. I mean, I do have a ton of notes, but as far as fall camp goes, I just wanted to kind of bring a couple things to light. And we did our top 25 the other day, and I had USC ranked number 8 in my top 25. And a lot of the things that I'm hearing right now are the exact reason of why I had them ranked 8 instead of 4 or 3 or 2 or 1. The USC's offense is a top 3 offense in the country. It's going to be. I have no doubt about that. I mean, we've talked about this on the previous show. Lincoln Riley's offense is good. Water wet, fire hot. These are things that are just known to the universe. Okay, we get that part, but they did. They added some defensive depth, but this spring and fall they haven't even been able to practice correctly because they don't have enough guys on defense. Now this does happen from time to time. UGA right now, in that going into that second scrimmage, wasn't able to, run their offense correctly because they don't have enough running backs, and they're using Brock Bowers at the running back position because we're so thin, and so that type of thing does happen. But it wasn't one position group on the defense that was having trouble. They couldn't. They were having to go against air for multiple days in a row because they can't field a defense to play in the camp. And I heard that confirmed again today that the defense is thin. What's it going to look like by the end of the year? We've already talked about USC, and they have a bye week on week 3 and then week 13 or whatever. So that doesn't help at all, unless they make the Pac-12 championship, which is a possibility they have recently. But I'm worried about this team. And if I have to name one team that I feel like is going to come in lower than expectations, has the most chance to do that's preseason ranked top 10, I think it's USC because I just don't believe in this defense. And, I don't believe in Alex Grinch. Everywhere that Lincoln Riley has gone, Alex Grinch has gone. It hasn't worked out, and it doesn't look like it's working out again. And when is Lincoln Riley going to? Is this the year? If it doesn't go well this year, you think he's going to get rid of Alex Grinch? I mean, at some point you have to be the CEO of the thing, and you've got to, you know, you got to control the operation. And I think Lincoln Riley is super willing to just run the offense and hand the defense off to somebody, but he's not putting it in the right person's hands. What do you think?
I agree with you in a sense that the defense has to get better. Do they have to be top 30 in the country this year? I don't think so. I don't think that means, like, if they end up 29th in the country, I don't think that Lincoln Riley should fire Alex Grinch because that's still an improvement. So if
they're top 30, man, they might win a title.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so, but either way, I mean, as long as I see some improvement, that's the issue, is they're stagnant, and they've done a great job of getting players. We know that this offseason they went in and got Jack Sawyer. They went in and they got Bear Alexander, numerous others. They've got Corey Foreman still on the roster, who hasn't done anything, but was the number 1 defensive lineman coming out of high school. So, they've got the players, they've got the talent, they've got to get better at developing that talent and put a scheme that works around your playmakers. It's players, not plays, in my opinion. And but they've got the players, but are they developing those players? And from the sounds of it, they're not, because they're not even putting them out on the field to practice. So
that's my thing. It seems like guys are going to USC. I don't know if they're going there to train for the NFL or they're going there to get a really nice apartment and have a 2-year vacation. And I'm worried about that part of it. For USC. You know what? Like I said, offense is going to be good. It could very well carry them to a Pac-12 championship. It's very possible. It's going to depend on how the cookie crumbles and how they hold up, as far as attrition and things like that. Because there's a few sensitive spots on the defense where they lose one guy and things really start to come unraveled. And, man, there's some good offenses in the Pac-12 this year. I'd say even better than last year, and some really good quarterbacks. So, and USC had a ton of turnovers last year. I mean, one logic would tell you that bad of a defense is not going to have that many turnovers again this year. They were tops in the country at creating turnovers, and if you watch the games, it seemed really kind of lucky. I mean, I'm just, and turnovers are kind of lucky, I guess. That's kind of luck of the draw, bounce a ball, whatever you want to call it. But I don't think you can rely on that to continue every single year. Who you want to go to next, man? Who you got?
Well, just one more thing on USC. I saw a picture that Lincoln Riley had posted a couple of nights ago, and it was from his, $30 million mansion, whatever, out in LA, and it was this beautiful sunset, like his wife or maybe one of his kids were in the pool. It was dark, so I couldn't tell, who it was exactly, but like the silhouette of someone kind of off in the distance, but this beautiful, sunset. And he had some caption behind it about like how it was nice and all this stuff. And I just got to thinking, like, how do you have time for this? Like we're
Yeah.
less than 2 weeks away from the season, and you're worried about social media posts like that don't revolve around recruiting and football. Like this is just that's the California mindset, about college football out there, and it's starting to show in Lincoln, I think. But I just thought that was really interesting, and how bizarre to see that. And I feel like you would never see that from a Kirby Smart or a Nick Saban. But if you're ready to jump into it, one other one that I've got, and this is just one that everybody has probably already heard about, but UGA names Carson Beck as their starter. As a Georgia fan, I tried to stay as neutral about this as possible, and hope that in a 3 quarterback competition like there was, presumably, that the cream would rise. This would help elevate the quarterback play regardless. And having this competition, I think it's done just that. In the back of my mind, I always thought, Carson Beck would be the starter. This is a guy who last season got a lot of playing time, and he ended up having some very successful drives against some number one or first team defenses, and ended up on the year completing 77% of his passes. So this guy, he's done his time. It's his 4th year in the program. I'm excited to see what he does, and I think that this is a playmaker for Georgia. This isn't someone who can run the offense. This is someone who's going to be sort of the catalyst for this offense, and he's going to propel it and elevate it. What are your thoughts on Carson Beck being named starter? And then we can get into the interesting nugget about why Kirby might have named him the starter so early.
Yeah, so I'm a big proponent for Carson Beck. This guy was a previous Florida Player of the Year. Took a team that had not won a state championship in a while and went and won a state championship, and like I said, was Player of the Year in the state of Florida. That's not something easy to do, and this wasn't. Excuse me. This wasn't at some, amazing school. Like I said, they hadn't won one in years.
They won 3 games the year before.
Yeah,
they won 3
incredible.
games.
I mean, that's incredible.
7A football.
You don't do that without some moxie and some skills that others don't have. And Carson is a lot different than Stetson. I think it kind of worked out for Georgia the way they transitioned offensive coordinators. I think it all kind of timed out correctly, I feel. Carson has a much more NFL prototypical arm and can make all the throws hash mark to hash mark downfield. It's not going to be as mobile as Stetson, but not a statue. So I think that's a good mix. And with this group of wide receivers that Georgia's got, I think it's going to complement him a lot. We're hearing that Dominic Lovett is everything that Georgia thought he was going to be. I'm hearing that, and I'm hearing Ra Thomas is getting there, and I think he's getting transitioned into the almost like boarding school approach to football at Georgia. It's a lot different. It's a lot different. Georgia football isn't for everybody. Not every player can handle it. Not every player likes that type of structure. But it sounds like Dominic Lovett is doing really well in the system. Ra Thomas is coming along, and I think both of those guys will contribute and catch a lot of balls from Carson this year, so long as they can stay healthy. But the quarterbacks, I wasn't worried about the quarterback. I didn't care really who it was. I mean, that you got highly recruited guys, 3 of them that are doing really well and progressing from what it sounds like to me. I would have been happy with any of them, and if something happens to Carson, I am confident. Whereas it will be a little bit different style with the other quarterbacks, I think everything would be okay. Um, Carson's got the most experience, and I think that's what Kirby said. Kirby said that he had the most experience. He's older, been in the system a year longer than one of them and 2 years longer than the other. And I think Kirby's got his guy, and I think Carson. And we're going to transition over to what Kirby said here in just a second. I'll let you tee that off, but um, this seems like a match made in heaven for Kirby to me. Carson just seems like he is personality wise like the perfect guy to play for Kirby Smart. I mean, there's a reason he's been there for years. He obviously liked something about it and felt good about his situation this year, but it just seems like this is like personality wise the best fit that Kirby's had. Because make no never mind about it, dude. Stetson Bennett was kind of hard to handle. I mean, that dude was hard to deal with in certain situations and was a knucklehead, man. I mean, that's why Kirby was on his butt all the time. All the time he was on this man's butt, but he had to be. He had to keep him straight. And Carson seems like the opposite of that to me. Carson seems like somebody who's wanting to be a professional quarterback, and will do if it's not something that's making him better at football. It doesn't seem like he's interested, and I like that business approach, and I think that business approach will will bode him well at the University of Georgia this year. I just hope he doesn't mount too much pressure on himself and will relax and let that offense work for him, because that's when Stetson did that. That's when things really flowed for Georgia in the last couple of years. Whenever he just trusted the guys around him, let them do their job, not try to do too much. Every time he tried to do too much, it bit Georgia in the butt. So as you were saying, Kirby kind of unprompted let this news loose. Tell us a little bit more about the press conference this week. It kind of caught everybody by surprise.
Yeah, when I saw that, I saw the headline first that Carson Beck was named the starter. I immediately thought, wow, that kind of came out of nowhere. I thought we were going to have a competition for the first 3 weeks of the season, up until the South Carolina game. I thought it was without hearing his post conference or his post scrimmage press conference. I thought it was very bizarre that Kirby, came out with this information. So then I went back and listened to it come straight out of his mouth, and he wasn't even asked. That's what was what got me is he made it a point to tell the media that Carson Beck is the starter. Now, it wasn't in his opening statement of the press conference, but he found a way to wiggle that in, and it was actually kind of awkward, like how he addressed it. It was very premeditated, and it was a little bit weird, but it was definitely uncharacteristic of Kirby. And I personally think that this was Kirby playing chess. So you've got a quarterback competition going on in Alabama. You got a quarterback competition going on in Columbus. You've got, now Auburn's followed suit, and we'll get to that in a minute. But you've got all these competitions going on everywhere, and nobody's naming starters, and everybody's keeping it close to their chest. So Kirby says, all right, we know who's going to be the starter, and I do think that Georgia's in a better position than some of these other programs that we're about to talk about. But I think Kirby, he didn't have to name a starter, obviously, and it's typical of him to in a quarterback competition to not name the starter and to allow it to develop and to continue to breed this competition that typically takes place. But instead, he just comes right out with it and says it, and I think it applies pressure on these other programs to go ahead and name a starter, or for people to question why they haven't named a starter. It makes them look weak when the best team in college football at the moment has named their starter, because they're confident in who they have, and that's actually a pretty realistic viewpoint of it, is to say, well, if you can't name a starter, then that's probably because you don't have one. And I think that that's actually what's going on. It's not always the case. Sometimes you just want to see them get a little bit better, and you want to keep that fire under their heels. But I just thought it was really interesting that Kirby, for once, came out during a competition, a quarterback competition, came out, didn't let it drag into the season, but in the preseason, pretty early in, 2 weeks away from their first game, from week one. But he comes out and says, you know, I've got a starting quarterback, and here he is. And for once, under Kirby, when there's been a quarterback competition, he's, I think, handled it the proper way. And come out and said it. And it's tough to say what's proper and what's not. Every year's different. Every quarterback's different. Some guys need that. But I think that this is going to stow confidence in Carson Beck for a couple of weeks, let him gel with his guys, let the team get behind him. But more so, I'm more just interested in this idea that Kirby's done this, and what sort of pressure that puts on other programs. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I feel like we are seeing some growth from Kirby Smart, is what I feel like, and I think you're probably right. I feel like Kirby picks and chooses times when he wants to release good news and bad news. And it's not just Kirby; he's got a great staff, and it seems like you're right. They probably had an upper hand here, considering I don't think they had a bad option. I really
Mhm.
don't, and I feel like Kirby felt confident in that too. But now the pressure is kind of off Georgia. Everybody's kind of looking in other directions, and they're looking at these other teams like, okay, who's your quarterback? Even
Mhm.
Georgia told us who their quarterback was, and they never tell us. So I agree with you, but at the same time, I think that Kirby has just grown a lot. There have been some kerfuffles, as Donald Trump would say, uh, in the Georgia quarterback situation. I mean, there really has it. The Jacob Eason thing. Jacob Eason ends up leaving, and Georgia's got Jake Fromm, and Justin Fields comes in, doesn't play worth nothing. I mean, he's caught on a hot mic at the end of the South Carolina game. Somebody says good game. He says, "Yeah, all I did was hand the freaking ball off." 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, whatever it was. Carson last year came in and played the whole fourth quarter of the national championship game. So you're talking about a totally different quarterback experience that Carson Beck has been through versus what some of the other backups have been through at the University of Georgia. And I'm sure it's the same for these other guys. And I understand breeding competition. I totally get that. And I know what these coaches are doing. They don't want anybody to get complacent. They don't want anybody to quit. But at the same time, I feel like there's a certain point where it's like, okay, we're within a week of the season. I feel like the team needs to know who the quarterback is. The team needs to be on the same page. The team wonders the same things we do, because Kirby he's not telling the defensive linemen or the wide receivers or the running backs who the quarterback's going to be, and not
Mhm.
telling the media. So everybody's wondering. So I feel like in certain times it kind of splits a locker room when you've got half the locker room liking this guy and half the locker room liking this guy. In this situation, I don't think anybody dislikes Carson Beck, but my point is it gets everybody on the same page. And I think that's what Georgia needs right now. You need to be on the same page. Let's focus on the task at hand. And uh, I think it was growth shown by Kirby Smart. Like I said, he hasn't handled quarterback situations great in years past. And then the Stetson Bennett thing, he took Stetson Bennett and he proved everybody wrong, including me, over the last 2 years. I was not a Stetson Bennett proponent, just like nobody hardly was. And then he goes and wins 2 national championships with the guy. So at this point, Kirby has the momentum in the decision making for the quarterbacks that he's never had. I'm going to trust his gut on this one. I think he made the wise decision to just go ahead and name the dude, and let's move on from it. And it was, while it was shocking, it is kind of a breath of fresh air. I can't even lie to you. Um, and I feel like he's handling this quarterback situation like a veteran coach, and that's a nice change of pace.
Yeah.
Let's
Well, and
you got something
so
else on UGA?
yeah, before you go on, I just thought it was interesting. You know, a little. This is a little bit more. We're kind of transitioning away from Georgia, but I thought it was interesting that we mentioned Kirby was kind of the first one to pull the trigger and name a starter in some of these quarterback with some of these quarterback competitions that are taking place. So after Kirby names his starter and Carson Beck, Auburn, Hugh Freeze then names Peyton Thorne as their starter, right? Then Houston names Texas Tech transfer Donovan Smith as their starter. Illinois names Ole Miss transfer Luke Altmaier as their starter. So you're starting to see a lot of these dominoes, start to fall. And you know, uh, not to say that they're necessarily doing it because Kirby Smart did it, but it is nice that we're in this stage of fall camp where now we know who's going to take the field, and lead their team. So I just wanted to throw that in before you started on.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, you know what? I'm actually going to throw a couple more things in there, or one more thing in there for UGA. Actually, two more. Excuse me. So I can't remember who it was, Mason. Oh, I do remember who it was. So Ernest Green goes down with an ankle injury. In that, I guess the second scrimmage, maybe. They said that there was a play where him and Truss both got hurt on the same
Mm,
play. Um, they're say- excuse me. They're saying that it's an ankle injury and it's not going to be something that's going to hold him back long term. But you got a starter down more than likely the first game or so of the year, which is not a big deal. Georgia doesn't have a hard schedule to start the year, but just thought that was newsworthy because Ernest Green was somebody that, man, they've been like super high on him, and he will play a lot this year. He's just going to have to tape it up, man, and see what he can do. They said he came back in for like 8 to 10 plays and went back out again.
yeah,
So I don't know what that means.
probably
Obviously,
mostly precautionary
yeah,
type of
yeah,
injury.
I would think so. And if it's somebody who's a projected starter, I mean, I don't think you want them
Well,
overdoing that, right?
and if there's a position that Georgia could take a hit at, it's probably offensive line. I mean,
Yeah,
so there was a competition going on. Ernest Green. This is only his second year. He's a true sophomore, or
hmm
maybe even a redshirt freshman. But I know it's his second year, and he came off of a back injury. But Austin Blasky this offseason, who was like a 3-star coming out of high school, he's been leading the pack, and they've said like he's going to be our left tackle for a while here. And then as Ernest Green, who is the more highly touted, very highly rated 4-star, kind of got his feet under him and came off of that injury, he eventually overtook him. But they definitely have no they're Austin Blasky's no slouch, right? So he's
hmm
going to step in. He's kind of been known as this utility piece for Georgia. He's kind of fitting that role now just because of how well he performed. But they have 6 bona fide starters on the offensive line, and really 7 if you include Micah Morris on the interior as well. So if Truss went down, Micah Morris could step in, and there would be virtually no drop off. So that doesn't scare me. But I think Ernest Green is a potential future first round pick.
yeah, yeah. And I'm hearing also that the defensive line, while serviceable, is definitely missing a defensive lineman one,
Mm-hmm.
like a Bear Alexander. I'm hearing
Yeah.
that's a soul that's dearly missed on the line. This is going to be a different looking Georgia defense, in my opinion, this year. I think it's going to be a more bend don't break kind of style. I think more than just like shut you down at the line of scrimmage. Now Georgia's got a bunch of defensive linemen that are going to rotate. They're going to stay fresh all game, normal stuff like that, and they're going to wear you down by the fourth quarter. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's just going to be a little bit different as far as there's no Jalen Carter. There's no big defensive lineman one to point at this point. Uh, it seems like there's always a surprise or two as the season goes on. So
yeah, I think you're going to see Jordan Big Baby Hall take that step, and as the season goes on, a lot like Bear Alexander last year, who wasn't doing much in the beginning, but as the season went on, I think he had 2.5 sacks in the national championship. So I think you could see a similar sort of growth from him, if not faster. They're saying this guy was more college ready than Bear was, and he's kind of a lot like Jalen Carter. So I'll be anxious to see. And he, I don't know why they call him Big Baby. He looks like a 35-year-old man. I mean, I don't know what's baby about him, but this guy's a freaking baller. And I think you'll start hearing his name called, the back half of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And last thing on UGA and Camp Buzz, I'm kind of mixed on this one, but I'm hearing that the other day, I guess it was the first scrimmage. And I'm not even joking when I say this. I heard a couple reporters say that it was literally like 117 degrees out there on the field. Like there was no wind, straight. I mean, and Kirby and them had scrimmage on Friday and Saturday in that. And there was one day where the heat index was about 100, and Kirby's out there in a Christmas sweater with all the guys. Just like basically, I don't want to hear about it being hot out here. Like I don't want to hear about it. I'm wearing a sweater and I'm fine. Like that's some hardcore coaching. So with that being said, I heard that Kirby was really laying it on everybody, especially the wide receivers. And the wide receivers I heard were dropping some balls in the first scrimmage. I heard it was a lot better in the second scrimmage. But I don't think Kirby was super. I think he was having one of those practice jerk days, as Hugh Freeze would say. Hugh Freeze said that he's becoming at Auburn. He's becoming a practice jerk, and I think it was one of those days for Kirby where he wasn't hearing any excuses or anything like that. So it's not abnormal for Kirby to pick on a group or a person that he feels like has got a chance to be really, really special. And he does that a lot, and I think that maybe that's kind of the situation here. Like, this is the best group we got on offense, offensive line, and wide receivers. It's where we're the deepest, and we're expecting a lot of returns on those areas. And I think he was doing some hard coaching on those guys, but nevertheless, that first scrimmage apparently didn't go as good as he wanted, and they were throwing the ball a ton. Like I said, there was running back issues as far as depth. So they were throwing the ball a bunch over and over and over and over again. So interesting. Nonetheless, though, I find that interesting. Who you want to go to next? Because I'm going to let you do it, and I'm going to let you get us teed off, and then I got to go use the bathroom real quick.
Yep, go ahead. I'll
Be right back.
Yeah, I'll filibuster for you. So coming out, or what's next coming out of the Camp Buzz is Ohio State. They've had a quarterback competition going on for some time now, and many figured that Kyle McCord will be the starter coming out of this, and he may very well be the starter coming out of this competition, but it's between Kyle McCord and Devin Brown. As of today, Ryan Day is still not comfortable naming a starter. So he's pretty much said that no quarterback is actually taking a step forward here. Hey, I just thought about it. Do you want to rerun through this, because you were kind of like off screen, and I know it's going to mess it up when we go into edit later.
Sure. Redo
okay.
which part?
Yeah. So, all right, I'll just tee it off. So the Camp Buzz coming out of Ohio State is, we've had this quarterback competition going on a while now. Now many figured that Kyle McCord is going to end up taking this spot overall. And at the end of the day, he may be their guy. But now Devin Brown is suddenly making a run for this position. And as of today, Ryan Day's come out and said that he's not comfortable naming a starter. He's neither one is setting themselves apart from the other, which doesn't necessarily mean that there's not good quarterback competition going on. I haven't heard that they both look awful, or anything like that. But you definitely would like to see more of a vote of confidence coming from your coach. It's just interesting to me that he hasn't been able to name a starter. There's nothing there yet at this point. Just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on what you think of this quarterback competition, and if you have a lean one way or another.
I really don't have a lean necessarily, but I mean, I feel like I feel like Kyle McCord. I guess I do have a lean. I have a gut lean, but I feel like Kyle McCord is the guy. Now, obviously, Ryan Day doesn't feel that way. He feels like there's obviously something missing. So I don't know what to think, man. They're not going to name a starter going into the season. They're going to let these guys play it out and see how it works out. I've just been kind of public with my thought that I don't think it matters who they put in there. Honestly, I think you're splitting hairs. I mean, obviously it matters long term. I feel like this is a plug and play offense. I mean, I feel like no matter who you put in there, they're going to produce. And I know that I know that they got a fierce competition going on and everything. So I'm very interested to see how it works out. But whoever gets to throw to those wide receivers, man, I mean, you just got it made. Unless neither one of them are any good, and in that case, Ohio State could be in trouble, right? But when has the last time that we've seen Ohio State not have a great quarterback? I can't. I mean, I guess when they won their national championship in what was it, 14, when they got their third string quarterback to win a national championship for them. I don't recall them having bad quarterback play. So no matter who they got, I think they're going to be. I think they're going to be at least really good on offense. The defense is what I mean. If we had, I'm sure they wish they had more competition going on at the linebackers and defensive line spots and offensive line too. I mean, they've got three-star transfer that's going to start a tackle for them. So those are more of an issue for this team than I think the quarterback, in my opinion.
Yeah, and maybe this is a case where the wide receivers are so good that they just make both of them look really good.
Yeah.
How do you decide?
That's what I think it is, and it's almost like when we saw C.J. Stroud play in the Peach Bowl last year, it's like we saw like a whole nother side of him, man. Like they don't even have to. Their quarterbacks don't even have to like give it every fiber in their being to make it happen. Like they make it easy on these guys as long as they're making the right reads. And I just feel like it's a plug and play offense for the Buckeyes this year. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to struggle on offensive line, but everywhere else they're deep. So
yeah, I mean, like I said, the biggest question is Jim Knowles' second year running this defense.
Mm-hmm.
Logically, they should progress, right?
They did last year, so
yeah, they were better. They were better. I think they're going to be more physical, is what I think the difference will be. Because, like we've said in the past, it wasn't that they were just consistently horrible. It was that while they did have some consistent issues on the defense, the problem was in the third and fourth quarter, and specifically the fourth quarter, just getting pushed around on the lines. And they've got to figure out a way to do that. You get pushed around, your defensive line gets pushed around, your linebackers are not able to make plays, your cornerbacks are stressed out because they're covering way too long. And that's what we saw. It all starts on the line, and that was the problems I felt like we saw when they played Michigan, and in the fourth quarter, Georgia outscored them 18-3. And you can't do that if you're going to win a championship. And they were so close last year to winning them a national championship, but not quite close enough. I am hearing from, as far as Ohio State buzz, I'm hearing that the secondary is looking much better, and I saw they got a really good cornerback commit. So I'm seeing that. I'm seeing some progression there, I think, in the secondary. But we're just going to have to wait and see how this defense performs whenever they really get into the throes of their schedule. So let's carry it on. We've done Ohio State, UGA, USC. Let's talk some Texas Longhorns since they are back and all. So Texas is back. What do you think, Mason? What do you think about Texas? I'm hearing some good things. Have you heard any murmurs out of Austin?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything as of today that's come out. That may just be just me, not paying as much attention to that. I've been focused on a lot of these quarterback competitions. But one thing that I am liking, what I'm hearing, is that their 5-star running back, forgive me, I forget his first name, but
CJ Baxter.
CJ
Mhm.
Baxter is looking like he might end up being the starter.
I'm hearing the same thing.
If not right away, then maybe a little bit later on. Overall, my outlook on Bama is very high. I think this is a very complete team. I don't know if they're deep enough to win a national championship, but I do think that they have a very complete team and should be. They're my picks to win the Big 12, which we talked about when we did our top 25 preseason ranking. So
yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry you had cut out for a second, and then I didn't realize I was interrupting you. But I just put a highlight on there on the screen there for everybody to watch. That's Jonte Cook. This is a freshman wide receiver that, I hate to even bring up a freshman wide receiver because this team is so deep on wide receiver.
Yeah.
But if they have an injury or just need a spark, this Jonte Cook dude is like super freaky, twitchy, witchy. Like this guy is going to be really hard to cover, especially in the Big 12. There's nobody that's going to be fast enough to be able to jam him and then keep up with him. You're going to have to give him his space and let him cook. And dude, this guy's going to be tough to deal with in the Big 12 and going forward. And I've also heard the same things that you're hearing about CJ Baxter. Nobody's named him, starter 1A, but that's not how running back works anyway. It's a platoon pretty much on every team, and it's looking like he's going to be a contributor if not the starter by the end of the year. And then one of my other notes is that it's actually been kind of quiet. Texas camp, I feel like it's been kind of quiet, but Quinn is obviously your starting quarterback. And I saw an interview with him, and this was actually a while back, and I can't remember who did the interview or I'd plug it, but basically he said that last year he didn't even know all the plays going up to the line. He was having to ask other guys in the huddle, what was going on. I mean, this isn't like a super easy offense to pick up, Steve Sarkisian's. He doesn't like first-year quarterbacks at all, and he just doesn't like them, man. And he says that it takes 2 years to figure it out. Quinn says that he is dialed in. He knows all the plays. He knows where everybody else is supposed to be. He cut his hair, so it's not just business. That was the biggest thing. It's not just business in the front anymore, Mason. It's business everywhere.
Yep.
He's rocking the short haircut. He's ready to rock and roll. I do expect big things out of Texas this year, and Texas is back. You heard me say it. They're back, and until they're not, and maybe they won't. A lot of people said they were back last year and they weren't. So we're going to see. But I really like this offense. Again, it's going to be it's going to be a tale of two teams. I'm hearing the defensive line looks really good at Texas.
Yeah, it's a strength for them for sure.
Yeah, I'm hearing defensive line looks really good. So I'm looking for that linebacker core to step up that I thought was pretty weak last year, and that secondary. But a good defensive line and a good middle defense and linebacker core can really, really, really help a secondary. We've seen it with Georgia in years past, where specifically 2017, where I didn't think the secondary was up to par for a national championship, and it felt like the line and the linebackers kind of helped restore some order and give those guys a chance to be productive. So I expect Texas to do some big things in the Big 12 this year.
Yeah, and specifically, I mean, you mentioned the defensive line. Who's that going to help you out against in maybe week 2 with the team that's trying to come out and play murder ball supposedly? That defensive line should be able to stuff the run. Hopefully, at least if you're a Longhorns fan, you would hope that they'll be able to slow that Alabama rushing attack down, and make what we expect to be Jalen Milroe beat you over the top. And I just don't know that he's able to do that.
Well, there you go. You said the M word. And so now YouTube is going to, they're going to dwarf our videos. Man, I put a shorts video out the other day, and it talked about Alabama playing murder ball. And I put it in quotes. I mean, that thing, I ain't never seen a shorts video come crashing that quick. That sucker got 10 views, man, in about 3 minutes. And it ain't got another view since, and that was 48 hours ago.
They took it out, yeah.
Yeah, so we have to say muck duck. We're not allowed to say murder. We say muck duck.
Okay.
So it's muck duck ball that's going to be played in Tuscaloosa. Sorry, YouTube, and we are really sorry, and help the starving pygmies down in New Guinea. Amen. But
amen.
I am very excited to see this squad in Alabama. I think the offensive line is going to be a big strength. We're going to talk about quarterback here in a second, but I want to get through a few other things, and we're going to talk about the Alabama quarterback situation. Jaheim Otis is going to be a bad dude. And I heard a story today, and I've got to share it real quick. And it was from Bud Elliott on the Cover 3 podcast. I've grown pretty fond of that podcast, and it's something that I frequent. But so Bud saw Jaheim Otis at a camp somewhere. I believe it was maybe the Alabama Mississippi Showcase last year, something like that. And they said this guy had a ton of bad weight on him. Okay, they said that he was almost 400 pounds and was beating guys around the edge. and so they were saying, this guy's a big project. He's going to have to lose about 60 pounds. Well, from everything that we've heard, Jaheim Otis has lost those pounds, and he's a bad dude. He's a freaking bad dude. So look for Jaheim Otis to really step up and be like a Mount Cody type. That's what I'm hearing. So I feel like Alabama's got something with this guy. I really do.
With him and Dallas Turner coming off the edge, that's something that I think that I think Will Anderson probably didn't have. They haven't had that interior defensive lineman really since Kirby came over to Georgia. They've been kind of tapped out with the interior defensive lineman, but maybe this helps Dallas Turner out a lot on the interior, and having someone that's going to get double teamed, by a lot of players. So this is going to be really an interesting front to watch for Alabama. Alabama was supposed to be really good last season on defense, and they really weren't. So, if this defensive line and this front seven is as good as advertised, then maybe that helps out with the linebacker core, which I think will be a little bit better. And then also the secondary, which I think also gets better. So really on all three phases of the game, Alabama should be better on defense. And if they're not, then you really got to start to question some other, coaching decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. Another guy that I'm really hearing a lot about on the other side of the ball. Can you see the highlights that I just put up? I'm not
Yeah,
on that
Malik
screen.
Benson. Mm-hmm.
Malik Benson is apparently he comes from the Hutchinson Community College, something like that. He's a JUCO guy, and somebody that Nick Saban has talked about 4 or 5 times now, and said that he's getting up to speed. When he first came in, said he was really talented, but he wasn't ready. Sounds like somebody that he's really challenging, and you can see these highlights where he's just beating everybody over the top. And this was a guy that in high school was running a 10-400 meter track star type. So I think that, and also the scout that evaluated him, just I guess it was 2-3 months ago, compared him to Jamison Williams. That was his comparison. So does Alabama have a guy that they, pulled out of the transfer portal that could possibly be a Jamison Williams type? I'm going to have to see it to believe it. I mean, this guy was, if he was at Hutchinson Community College, I'm not sure the backstory on all that. Maybe it was a grade situation, or maybe he, didn't play football long and he got better and better. I'm not sure what the situation was there, but if they found that, maybe they found a diamond in the rough at wide receiver, because this team needs somebody to emerge at wide receiver. I don't. It's the same old with the wide receiver group that we've been hearing, that they're dropping balls, man. Like, they can't hold on to the ball. They can't get separation. And that's why we said Alabama's back to muck duck ball, right? But you got to have somebody to take the top off, man. You're going to be able to line up against Ole Miss and probably bully them and beat them, 20-17 or 24-17 or something like that. But yeah, Alabama obviously is measured by championships. They're not going to get in a championship game and run it down Georgia's throat. I mean, it's not going to happen. So somebody's got to step up. Maybe they can go with that old school, run, play action type thing and bomb somebody over the top. But that leads us to our next question. Wide receivers are only as good as the man that can get them the ball, and that's wide receiver. Tell us what you're hearing about the quarterback situation at Alabama.
Yeah, so we've known for a long time that this is a 3 quarterback competition in Tuscaloosa that's going on right now, and it's Jalen Milroe, who played a lot last year. He's kind of the projected starter, if you will. Ty Simpson, who is the better passer. He's more of a pro style, typical quarterback who's also competing. And then you bring in the transfer who came over with new offensive coordinator Tommy Rees, and his name's Tyler Buckner, who was the 3rd string quarterback at Notre Dame and threw for 50-something%. But anyways, he comes over. He knows the offense. He's got a little bit of experience, more snaps than either Milroe or Simpson. And we're hearing some things. Simpson has a good game, a good day at practice. Milroe has a good day at practice. Buckner, as of a week ago, I think was presumed to be out of the race, at this point. And then after scrimmage number 2, all anybody could talk about is Dylan Lonergan. Well, what? So Dylan Lonergan is from Brookwood High School. He's a true freshman, pretty highly rated guy coming out of Brookwood. Had a great high school career there, but he enters the chat, and now all of a sudden you're like, well, is it a 4 quarterback race? Why are we talking about Dylan Lonergan? And Nick Saban, he kind of nips that in the bud, and he says, this look at him next year. It's basically what he says. And you never know what could happen in practice and in games if maybe he does get a chance, especially if there's an injury. You just never know, but it's not a good sign that you've pretty much gone through 3 quarterbacks and now all of a sudden people are talking about a fourth. Um, the writing's on the wall for the quarterback room. It's not good, and I think that Saban's going to be forced to go with Milroe because he knows that he can get something out of his legs and utilize his legs at least. But Milroe, by all accounts, is making some good plays, but he's also having some real bonehead moments, and he's still not a polished passer, and he's still making mistakes. And I think that's going to lead to a lot of volatility in that room for Alabama and a lot of turnovers. And, for as good as this Bama defense should be, he may set them back in a lot of ways and cost them some big games, and, you mentioned not being able to run in a championship game against Georgia. If that's what they really try to do, is if Alabama really tries to play muck duck ball, then yeah, they're going to have issues against Georgia, but they're also going to have issues against LSU because that's possibly the best defensive line in the SEC. And you're not going to run on LSU if Mason Smith stays healthy, and if Harold Perkins stays healthy. And they've got one other guy. His name escapes me right now, but another interior defensive lineman. So, yeah, good luck. Good luck winning the West if you're going to try and run the ball. They've got to have somebody that can go over the top, and I think it's pretty evident that they just don't have.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you're saying right there. I think the fact, like you just said, the fact that Lonergan is being talked about is not a good thing. I don't think that's a good sign for the Alabama quarterback room. We've talked about it all offseason. The old saying is, you got 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one. And as I've said, I don't believe that. If you've got 3, you don't have one. That makes a lot more sense. What if you got 4, Mason? I think I think that very clearly says that you don't have one. If you have 4, and we're this close to the season, and you can't lock that down, who's going to be the starter? So, we heard a couple different people say that Ty Simpson's the guy. You can pretty much call it off. We never heard Nick Saban say anything like that. And now I heard last night on Josh Pate's show that like you said, Milroe is going to be the one that's going to take the first snaps. And this is an interesting way to go. I don't understand how you recruit these quarterbacks and none of them work out. I cannot for the life of me figure that out. That's been my thing with Georgia the whole time, is, well, I know that if one of them doesn't work out, another one will. There's enough talent there. Not all of them are not, going to not work out. How did this happen in Alabama? All the talented quarterbacks that they've had over the last few years, how in the world did we get to this point where Alabama doesn't have a quarterback and they're pulling Ty Buckner from Notre Dame, who had, let's just be real. It was not a good year. He didn't play good. There was not many signs of him playing good, but I think it was the mobility aspect. He is pretty mobile. So they were trying to bring a spark in and things like that. But I just don't even understand how we've gotten here. And it goes to show you that it can happen to anybody, I guess, because if it could happen to Alabama, then it could just about happen to anybody. And I mean, how many quarterbacks do they have in the NFL right now, and have they put in over the last 10, 15 years? And specifically over the last about 7 years, they've had some really, really, really good ones. So Lonergan is not going to start. They can talk about Lonergan, and that's great that he's making progressions, but he's not going to help you in 23. So Milroe's gonna have to be the one to cut the mustard, man. Because if not, then this Alabama team's going to be in trouble. If you have no element of surprise or can't keep a defense on their heels, it's going to make running the ball. I don't care how damn good your offensive line is, how good your running backs are. If everybody knows you're running it, it's going to be tough sledding the SEC, man, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think that this is going to be a Bama team that the more I look at it, the more I do think that this defense is going to be pretty good. And that's going to win them a lot of games. And it could end up winning them the SEC West. Who knows? But ultimately, I do think that if their offensive style of play doesn't change, throughout the season, then they're going to have some issues and they're going to lose some games because of it. Because if you're one dimensional these days, you're just not going to make it.
No, I totally agree, man. And it's going to be an interesting year for the Crimson Tide, and I really cannot wait to see how things go and progress. This is just a few days away, man, from college football getting going, and I just cannot wait to see some hitting, man. I can't wait to see it get kicked off, and it's going to be really, really exciting. And before we get everybody out of here, man, I just wanted to kind of go over some injuries and see what your thoughts were on this. One of these in particular, I feel like, has a lot to do with how the Pac-12 is really going to go this year. Cam Rising. So, he blew his knee out last year. He hasn't been back at practice yet, not without restrictions. If he doesn't come back right now, then he's more than likely going to be missing the first game of the year, or maybe even two. If Cam Rising's not playing, man, Utah's going to have a hard time achieving their goals and repeating for a third time winning the Pac-12. So I don't even know who their backup quarterback is. Do you?
No, I've heard that they've got a pretty decent backup quarterback, to play. But I mean, if you take a hit and you lose against Florida week 1, I mean, it doesn't help, when you're trying to make a playoff game. If you have an out of conference, SEC game, obviously it helps if you're able to win that game, and I think with Cam Rising, they've got a really good shot at it. That they should be able to pull that game off, especially that being that it's in Utah. But after that, they've got to play Baylor, and that's no slouch either.
Yeah.
So if they go 0-2 to start the season, I mean, that's not good. My understanding is that Cam Rising was expected to be able to start week 1 if he's able to get on the field within 10 days of the first game. If he's able to get out there and practice within 10 days, then he, being a veteran, knowing the offense, he should be good to go. But I think that means he would need to start like tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So that's not looking good.
Yeah, it doesn't look good to me either. I don't have a good feeling about that one. Cade McNamara, I told the story about what happened the other day. So Cade McNamara transferred to Iowa in the offseason from Michigan after he was J.J. McCarthy was named the starter and carried the team through the end of the year. So the other day they were having a kids' day at Iowa, and Cade McNamara was out there messing around with the kids and stuff, and it was a non-contact thing. He went out on a QB bootleg out to the right and just collapsed, and which is usually a really, really, really bad sign, right? And then Kirk Ferentz came out like 45 minutes later, and he was doing interviews on the field, and he said that it was just a muscle thing and that he was fine. Well, he hasn't made it back to practice yet. So, and this was a guy who was coming off of a knee injury, I'm thinking, some type of injury that he was recovering from.
Yeah.
So that's another one to watch out for. Iowa, for no good reason at all, is ranked 25th in the AP top 25. I don't know who the hell is a glutton for punishment on that. I don't. What have they done to deserve that? I don't know. But
that's a projecting sort of ranking, in my opinion. I am pretty high on Iowa and this offense. Well, I'm not high on their offense. I think their offense is taking a step forward.
I was about to make a
really,
YouTube short on that bitch right there.
I'm really high on their defense, but I think that their offense maybe steps it up to where they can be a little bit more competitive.
They're a team,
but
they're
they
like
got to have Cade
opposite.
McNamara to do that. So.
Yeah, for sure. They got to have him. And this team is like the opposite of so many that they're like the opposite of USC. They're like the polar opposite. Like, I mean, if they could just have a top 40 offense, they'd be really, really hard to deal with.
Yeah,
because that
seriously.
defense, man, they can cause they make you make mistakes, and they capitalize on them. They get turnovers. The best Iowa games, typically, they've end up with 2 or 3 interceptions, a fumble recovery, and they win 10-7.
Yeah.
So, and everybody's talked about they're on a kind of a, I don't know what you call it, like an expectation of scoring a certain amount of points this year. The offensive coordinator is Kirk Ferentz's son, which is just absolutely blows my mind that somebody would hire their son as an offensive coordinator. But if he doesn't score, I forget how many points, 200 and something points this year, then he loses a bunch of his salary or whatever. I mean, it's really kind of silly how it's all out in the open like that. But I guess when you hire your son, you've got to kind of put that stuff out there and make people believe that there's no type of nepotism. And then one more injury I've got. I mentioned this on our last show, but Donovan Green, he's a tight end at Texas A&M. Somebody they were looking to contribute a lot this year. That was going to be, I think, their tight end 1, good pass catcher and everything. He is out for the season. Blew out a knee. And I got one other one too. And this isn't an injury. And this was something we talked a little bit about on the last show, but I kind of got some more information about it. So I don't know if you remember, Mason, but there was a cornerback at Texas A&M and that came in that awesome class that they had. His name was Denver Harris.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds to me, this is something that's been kept kind of quiet. And so this has kind of come through some channels and things. So something to keep an eye on. But apparently he has been in multiple physical altercations with the team, was kicked out of practice a couple times, and I'm hearing that he's indefinitely suspended. And this is a big hit, in my opinion. This is somebody that, because everybody knows the woes that LSU is going through right now with cornerback. And I really feel like this is the only chink in the armor for this team in this defense. And it's made up of a bunch of transfers, and then you lose Denver Harris. If this is all true, that's not a good sign for LSU in the secondary.
I am seeing that a report came out yesterday that he did return.
Okay.
So I don't know. Yeah. That's what it looks like. So
well, we kind of, it's weird. We had this same type situation with Booty last year.
Mm-hmm.
It was like one day he's in, the next day he's out. He's not at practice. He's not in school. Oh, he is at school. He is at practice. And it was kind of a crap show throughout the year. And I feel like it was a bit of a distraction too. It was definitely a distraction because of some of the off-field stuff I heard about with him, and I won't go into that. But just interesting, something to watch out for, because this is a cornerback room that's already relying on some unsteady ground to get their footing. And I think the defensive line and the linebacker room is going to be good enough to mask a lot of that throughout the year. But when they play a real good passing attack, if they get to play Georgia this year or somebody with a good quarterback and wide receivers, I think it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that. But man, that's about all I got for tonight. What, you got anything else for the good people?
No, I think that's all that I had. Really one other little nugget came out today that Michigan is going to self-impose a 3-game suspension for Jim Harbaugh. Why not? I mean, you look at their schedule, and I mean, you're going to miss East Carolina, UNLV, and one other, cupcake non-con. I mean, why not go ahead and give yourself a 3-game suspension? so that when, and he's going to appeal this, later on, and maybe it all fizzles out. It probably looks better for his situation that they did self-impose, but why not do it on your own terms rather than have them, self-impose next season, and maybe he's out for the freaking Ohio State game. You never know how long these things will drag out. So, it's well played by Michigan.
They're doing everything they can to nip this thing in the bud, and I heard some things, and I think this is going to be one of those situations that's going to come back to haunt Michigan, unfortunately. And this is my personal take on it, so I'm not saying this is, take it to the bank or something, but the more and more that I've heard about this, the more I realize that it's not about the cheeseburger. We were told about the cheeseburgers like it was, he bought him a cheeseburger, and that's not what this is about. He lied to the NCAA. That's what this is about. And we've seen this a few times with coaches, and most people don't remember Chip Kelly. Whenever he left college football, he was slapped with a show cause ban from college football at the time. And he went to the NFL to avoid it. And I think that Michigan, personally, this is my take, I think they're kicking the can down the road. And I think that after the 23 season, sometime in the offseason, you're going to hear more about the situation. And I know Jim's been flirting with the NFL. I would not be surprised at all to see him take an NFL job next year and just totally bypass all this stuff. The NCAA can't do anything to you if you're not coaching the NCAA. And we talk about how inept and toothless and nutless the NCAA is. The one time that they really can come after you is whenever you lie to them. And most of the time when you lie to them, you end up with a show cause. And I don't have a good feeling about this, but I feel like Michigan has done enough to where they're going to keep – it's not going to affect their 23 season, I don't believe at all. And the self-imposed suspension is great. I heard that they had went – because originally it was a 4-game suspension. That's what we heard. And then I heard that they were going to have that approved, basically like a settlement, like you would have a settlement approved to make sure that it fits what has happened. And I heard that they said that that wasn't gonna cut the mustard for what had happened. So now I'm hearing, like you said, that Michigan is imposing a self suspension, and it feels like they're, like I said, kicking the can down the road on this thing.
Yeah.
So, we might have us a good old fashioned Connecticut cover up. You ever heard of one of those?
No, what's that?
We covered it up. That's how good it works. So that's why you've never heard of it. So we're going to see if it'll work for the Michigan Wolverines. But man, that's about all I got. But let's go ahead and let everybody know what our intentions are as far as breaking down this week 0 stuff. So we're going to put out a video on Thursday and then one on Friday, correct, Mason?
Yes.
So we will have those loaded up on Thursday and Friday. I'll set up a countdown for everybody. But on Thursday, we're going to go through all our week 0 games. We're going to talk about all the matchups. It's not great matchups, but we're going to go through them nonetheless because it's football season, baby. And that's what we do on the First and Long College Football Podcast. And then we're going to go through and name our conference champions. We're going to name our 4 playoff teams that we are picking to go to the playoff. And then we're going to pick our national champion prediction. And so that should be a really fun show. And that's all going to be on Thursday. And then on Friday, we're going to do a series on Fridays. I'm going to try to do it Fridays at noon, lunchtime, and just keep it short and do a fantasy football and betting line show where we're going to bet on over-unders, lines, all that good stuff on the upcoming games for that week. And that way we can get you in and out of the betting window before those Friday night games and Saturday morning and Saturday games start to be played. And hopefully give you guys a chance to make some money with me and Mason, and we're going to enjoy that aspect of betting on the college football games like we always do. And we hope that you'll come out and join us, and maybe get in the comment section, and if you've got some sprinkles, some interesting some bets to throw down, we'd love to hear them in the comment section. And we're going to work on getting on Twitter and all that good stuff too. So got some good things going. We're gearing up for a great 2023 season. We know it's going to be great because it's college football, and water wet, fire hot, college football good. We know these things, and we hope that you'll come and join us. Mason, you got anything else, Bubba?
That's it. We've got a busy week. It's so nice. You kind of let off the show with this, but it's so nice to not have any sort of conference realignment talk. We're done with that. That is behind us.
Out of here.
In front of us is college football, and it's right around the corner. I cannot freaking wait. We finally get some normal shows this week where we're breaking down, some gameplay, and some matchups, and so I'm really excited. I'm very happy to have any of our fans, join us, to be a part of this community and move forward. This is our first year doing this, so we're just getting rolling, and we invite you along for the ride, and hope that you'll come on with us and grow with us as we learn this first year. This is our beta year, as I call it, and we're gonna take our L's every now and then, but we're gonna learn and grow from it, and we have a lot of fun doing this. I can tell you, there's nothing I'd rather be doing right now than talking college football, and this is a lot of fun for us, and we hope we can continue doing this for a long time.
Yeah, this is what we do anyway. We're just going to do it on the internet so that other people can see it, and we're only going to be better for it because everybody these days has access to information, unlike ever before, and we know that you guys, they call them fans for a reason. You're a bunch of fanatics, and can't wait to converse with everybody throughout the season. But for everybody here at the First and Long College Football Show, we appreciate you tuning in, and we will see you very soon.